very, very little CPOs switch back to fixed pricing once they understood the benefits of dynamic pricing. The next way of pricing is algorithmic smart pricing, which means that you have more variables, a lot more variables, which is the secret sauce to not find yourself in a location where suddenly three competitors have dynamic pricing. You probably have seen the Spider-Man meme by pointing at the fingers and you, all three are dynamic. Am I more dynamic than you? There is no distinction if you use the same method.
Welcome back to the part 2 of my conversation with Sebastian Fleischhacker. In this video, we're going to discuss in depth about dynamic pricing, how the prices have evolved, why there is need for flexibility, and what would be the role of AI and algorithm in the future of charging. So let's find out. But let's move towards the topic where I introduce you, because you have so much knowledge. It's such a pleasure to talk to you about so many topics, what are happening in the e-mobility. So sometimes we lose track what was the intending topic. So for me, it was dynamic prices, and it's been the last few days or the last few weeks that was a hot topic, especially after recently Shell announced that they are also piloting their dynamic pricing model. So that's where I became interested to see what dynamic prices are, how they differentiate between the current prices that we know in Germany, which is the idle session fee or maybe fixed rate that I'm only aware of. But I recently saw also some articles from Lauren McDonald, who is working in US at Parent, and he also shared some insights. In US, they are using a lot of TOU, so time of use pricing models. So since that time, I'm kind of interested how it's working. So I just wanted to understand what exactly is dynamic pricing in context of EV charging, and how does it differentiate from traditional pricing models?
Maybe I take you and the audience through a little trip on history of pricing models.
Gladly.
To understand where we come from and how we ended up in dynamic pricing. And is dynamic pricing the end of the journey? I don't think so. But we get to that further down in your questions. So everything started with the first charger, and the first charger to be offered in public was an AC charger. So how do I charge on an AC charger? I give away a certain amount of kilowatt hours during a very long time, because I can, well, maybe with the Q210 and the Q90, when they were still built, you could have the option to charge at 43 kilowatts on AC, but that is no longer the case. You will find these triple chargers in Europe less and less, and the cars are also dying out slowly.
Yeah, moving to
But
22
the limitation
22
was
kilowatts or 11 kilowatts, right?
exactly. Exactly. So how many kilowatt hours can you sell during a day? That is limited. So it was easy to set the first pricing model, which was fixed pricing, right? Fixed pricing, simple. Then things evolved, and suddenly, oh, we can remove certain weight from EVs. Weight and efficient driving have a big connection in EVs. So you remove the onboard charger, you move the charging part into the external DC charger, and you can, at the same time, even give a higher kilowattage, right? So you get more power into the cars. Suddenly you have one location where you had this AC charger and you planted the DC charger. Oh, damn it. That doesn't make sense. If I put the same price on both and I set the price for the AC charger, everybody's going to charge at the DC chargers. So does it make sense to have AC and DC pricing? Yes. So that evolved into a certain type of product pricing. I have an AC product and I have a DC product. Then things evolved in the hardware sector and in the OEM sectors. Cars were able to charge at faster rates. Hardware producer could produce stronger chargers. So you can now differentiate certain hours of the day with more flexible variables. What you mentioned before, with the initial session fee and time variables and kilowatt. I call that variables. That this is not a pricing model. That are variables that can be applied to pricing. And one of them is time in certain periods of the day or in certain periods of the week. Because charging on the weekends in a place where you, let's imagine a suburb, right? Nobody lives there during the week, but a certain activity happens on the weekend. So you can differentiate a Saturday, Sunday from Monday until Friday. Then this idea of flexibility came in. Flexible pricing was set, and something that is very, very common for pre-dynamic pricing thinking of how to sell electricity was, but electricity has not really a fixed price. But EV drivers are too dumb. They will not understand that. I really don't like that part because you and I know when to iron our shirts. We know when to program our washing machine, our dishwashers, and we don't suddenly turn into idiots when we go into the garage and sit behind the wheel of our EV. As much as CPOs wanted to be protective or run away from the complexity of dynamic pricing was going to be the next step, which means that after 3 months periods, CPOs were thinking about, oh, did I really lose money or make money? Did I price it correctly? Because electricity changes every day. How do I make myself more attractive? Or how do I protect myself against
losses,
financial risk if I price it below the Yeah, I mean that is known from the airline industry for decades. They bought at a certain moment of time millions of liters of kerosene, and then they priced the tickets of their seats accordingly on the next year. What happens? You could either be lucky and be having great prices, but if you priced or bought in the wrong currency in the right moment of the year, you would be a year out of market. That wasn't such a big issue, a big deal for companies that could afford to lose money for a year. That is no longer the case. There are more and more groupings of airlines. There are also more and more airlines that purchase their fuel in a different way. They hedge the pricing, and then a mechanism to follow it and understand the pricing of fuel was created, which was called dynamic hedging, which leads us to dynamic pricing, right? But before we go away to dynamic pricing, flexible pricing can be as flexible as you want with as many variables as you want, but it needs to be the same during a certain period of time, which was the standard. It was standard for me as a roaming manager that after every 3 months I needed to re-sign all the contracts and introduce the new tariffs again and again and again, because that was just the complex way that people thought that roaming should work.
and
When
by
we moved to
redesigning, you
dynamic,
mean and by redesigning, you mean, for example, if a certain number of idle prices or session start prices needs to be added, what should be the prices or the fixed price, let's say, for the charging sessions, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hour, whatever. And then maybe if you want to add another variable like blocking fee or something. So this is what you're talking about, right? Every 3 months you had to, these things need to be adjusted again and again to see if the CPO is not making a loss, for example.
exactly. And then there are companies that are more advanced or less advanced with pricing teams of one or two, or pricing teams with about 10 people working out the pricing, that look into the charge point management solution and look at the history and say, oh, with that price, we experimented in our simulators that this and that, and the blocking fee should be from that time onwards or not, depending on the location as well. Did it work out or not? The problem is charge point management solutions are not as flexible, or a good restaurant in the wrong place is not going to make as much money as a bad restaurant in the amazing place. The best place to go and eat
Okay.
is gonna be visited more even if the restaurant is bad.
Yes.
And all these extra variables will be coming after dynamic pricing, which we get in a point soon. So dynamic pricing was created. It could, during a certain contract period, be changing every day, unannounced. Oh my God, you are not announcing when you are changing your prices? Oh, but that is illegal. I want to know my prices before. Yes, well, then get your EMSP app working, because your plastic card is not going to show you a dynamic price. Stop insisting. There are certain cultures in Europe that got stuck in the RFID activation and identification method. The only problem with that is the dumb plastic card is not very sustainable. You can create wooden cards with antennas inside. One point. Please, guys,
Yes.
stop using plastic. But at the same time, these cards, they're not very smart. And if you don't look into the app or portal, or however you want to look at it, you will not get access to information. And that is the whole point of for me of an EMSP. You need to provide the value of making your end user feel the smartest with the best added value services so that you can succeed, right? So please, guys, let's move away from the past of the RFIDs, put routers and signal intensifying methods in undergrounds, for example, but allow people to use smart readouts of the pricing. One thing I saw after that, at the next level to dynamic pricing, was um, uh, dynamic energy spot market pricing. So if you go and look at currencies, currencies change every minute. Energy in most advanced markets change every 15 minutes. So you can look into the future. You can understand if it is going to rain, or we are going to have more wind, or if it is going to be sunny, what generation methods will be needed next day. It is not magic. It's called meteorology, and it is setting the standard of how we make business every day at home, and on supermarkets, on gas stations, everywhere. Energy prices will become a certain particle of what you're consuming at these places, and how you consume at these places. I'm going to consume more, as I said, with the dishwasher, or ironing in the right time of the day, if I don't have batteries, right? Because I could be smarter and also start using the batteries and be energy independent and contribute to the grid. But that's another method of dynamicity. That was very well received in the Nordics 3 years ago. So where does dynamicity happen? It happens in more mature markets, where EV adoption is more mature, and where CPOs are more mature, and where they want to contribute to the grids. That is where more advanced dynamic pricing happens. So what I said at the beginning, that is not the end of the story. That the dynamicity of pricing depends on certain variables, right? And I think the next um, pricing, the next way of pricing, which is already in use in several um, of the German top 10 CPOs, is algorithmic smart pricing, which means that you have more variables, a lot more variables, which is the secret sauce to not find yourself in a location where suddenly three competitors have dynamic pricing. And you probably have seen the Spider-Man meme by pointing at the fingers and you all three are dynamic. Am I more dynamic than you? There is no distinction if you use the same method. So you need to add more variables.
Okay, but So thank you firstly for taking the whole journey and how we are talking about dynamic pricing from the very first starting session until how we have evolved and how we have come over here and how it's working in different markets. The point where I kind of did not understand was we were talking about grids. We were talking about that nowadays it's easier. The energy prices change every, let's say, 15 minutes. We can prognose, we can forecast based on meteorology. So the idea is that we are going to see the energy mix and we can prognose it for, let's say, for a week. And then we can think of, okay, in the next week for this, what sort of energy mix we are going to have. Is it going to be majorly renewable or is it coming from the coal? And then based on it, that there are already available prices for a week for a CPO to use that knowledge while offering dynamic pricing.
So if you're talking about smart pricing, which I think is a level above dynamic pricing, the source of the electricity is only one of almost 30 variables. There are other variables that have been measured for years. For example, traffic. For example, how people behave in certain areas, if it is a public holiday or not, or the probability that during that week it will rain or not. So people will behave, and their consumer behavior will be different than in other times of the year. So there are many
Okay.
more variables than just the source of the electricity.
So this is the point probably you were going to come that, okay, now if there are three CPOs and they're all are going to offer, let's say, some sort of dynamic pricing, but then they have to work on the variables. And among them, okay, so sorry, maybe I've cut it early, but that I did not understand. So now you're talking about into the variables, how different CPOs can differentiate themselves.
Exactly.
Okay. No,
Think about the Spider-Man meme of all three pointing at each other. I'm more dynamic than you. I'm more Spider-Man than you. You're three Spider-Mans. Sorry, I need another superhero to have a better pricing.
understood. So how would that dynamic pricing look like for an end consumer? So let's say I have an EV, I go to a charger nearby. So let's say if that CPU is going to offer a dynamic pricing model, so how does it look for me? Do I get to see when I arrive on the station what sort of prices are there? Or do I see it in my app? What are they offering for dynamic pricing per day or per week? And then I will ask another question as well. How do I pay? But I will let you first explain the first part.
Okay, so the most advanced ways of presenting dynamic pricing would include um, a certain planning, right? And you and I know that EV driving is not the same as internal combustion engine driving, and it will be more or less complicated depending on how much effort the OEM has put in your EV routing.
Uh-huh.
If you are aware where you start your journey, how much is the state of charge of your battery, what is your destination, what is the quickest way to go there, what is your instant consumption, and which are the cheapest, more attractive chargers around, then you will drive smartly.
Exactly.
If your CPO is incapable of providing this type of information to the end users, then charging pre-vision will be different. So you would be required to understand what is happening in the next 24 hours and
Mhm.
during what periods of time the price will rise and lower. What is the benefit there? The benefit there is for the CPO, you will be the most attractive priced charger in the region. And for the end user, he will see a cheaper charger than everywhere else. So one is not exposed to a risk of being perceived too high and nobody coming to that charging station, and that charging station suddenly be covered in dust and in spider webs and whatever. Or you can dynamically price, be more attractive, have less financial risk of not being used. And from the end user perspective, well, it's just a more attractively priced charger that thinks about you, and your user experience will be excellent because you know how much power you're expecting, but you even know that you have a better price than yesterday or than in 2 hours.
Yeah, that will absolutely make sense. And I think you have already answered the next two questions I was thinking about. Was the first one that how the CPOs are going to benefit from dynamic pricing? Will it improve their business case? Will it improve their return on investment? And will it improve their charging frequency? As well as I was going to ask another question, which you have already kind of answered about the customer behavior, and is it going to change on the customer side of things as well? And I think you summarized that if I live in an area where there are 3 or 4 charging station operators or nearby, right now for me, it's going to be the one which will have the best prices, and I will try to use, of course, for that. For my own personal use case, I would use a cheap CPU which has the best prices. And if they are going to offer me a dynamic pricing, and I kind of know when to charge and how I can save against one CPU. Because if everybody, let's say at uh, 6 p.m. in the evening, everybody is charging 70 cents, but one is going to charge, I know, at, let's say, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, their prices are going to go down to 50 cents. I know my decision. I will change my behavior. I will stop charging at 6 o'clock in the 6 p.m. I will rather go to a place which will charge much cheaper at 8 p.m. So I think on the customer side, I will be willing to change my behavior, and it will help the CPU as well.
It will, and you will very, very quickly learn that if you offer software to a charge point operator that is capable of doing fixed pricing and facilitate the possibility to offer dynamic pricing, they will not switch back. They will understand it very, very quickly. Very, very little CPOs switch back to fixed pricing once they understood the benefits of dynamic pricing.
Okay, and I think it's going to help also on the grid side as well, because let's say if a CPO is going to install some chargers, they have always a limited number of chargers they can install at different site. Sometimes it's limited from the connection side, from the grid side. Sometimes it's the transformer that is on the site. But there is always a situation where there's a risk. Okay, maybe there could be a lot of charging session at one time, so that's why we need to employ energy management solutions. But if with the help of dynamic prices, you can already, let's say, change the customer behavior so that they are coming more at after grid, after off-peak hours. So you're helping your use case as well. I think within your limitations as a CPO. But the other thing I was thinking is probably they could be making more profit because at high peak times, the energy cost will be higher for them as well. And then the margin will be lower. But if they're going to sell the energy at cheaper prices, I mean, if they can charge 1 or 2 cents more, and if I'm paying 50 cents or if I'm paying 52 cents, um, I think I will be still happy not to pay 70 cents or 80 cents.
And you said something that exists for a very long time, which is dynamic load management, right? But if you are going to experience lower power levels at your car and you will be charging during more time, why is dynamic pricing not automatically applied to these people that are feeling a worse or longer charging experience? Let's say AC. AC, you expect the car to charge at 32 amps. So I remember one of my first dynamic load management experiences. I arrived. I knew, okay, this charger will give me 32 amps. At the end of the day, I will be able to drive home. I live a little more far away. I know this morning my battery is not so full, so I will connect at work. But what was my surprise? My car was deprioritized in the queue. And now, even if I had paid for a session fee to initiate a session, I didn't receive enough kilowatt hours to get back home. Shouldn't dynamic pricing be directly coupled with dynamic load management? Duh, yes.
Yes.
For me, there is no other option because it's going to be unfair
But how
if
will
you
it
wouldn't do
work?
it, right?
That was also another question I wanted to ask, but I think I will move right now over there. Um, how does a dynamic pricing look like? So is it dynamic pricing already if I initiate the charging sessions? Let's say if I arrive at a site and the charging price, although dynamic, it's 65 cents, let's say, per kilowatt hour. If I start the charging sessions and I take, say, 40 minutes, I'm standing over there, is the price going to remain 40 cents for the whole time, although every 15 minutes the price could change? Or is it then called dynamic that we are adjusting the prices during the charging? Maybe in your case of load balancing, you were not expecting that, okay, my power bill will be reduced. And now it has been reduced, so the price needs to be changed for you. So how does it look like?
Pricing dynamically and under roaming conditions is not something that the EV charging world invented, right? This was invented long time ago by the telco companies, and the telco companies learned that adjusting the minute price during a call was going to be perceived very negatively. Will that change now that we have moved away from ancient times where telephone roaming was a thing? I don't know. But for now, what what happening is that you have an hour where the price is defined. So if you start at that hour, you will have that price during that hour.
Okay, that will work, I think, for most of the DC charge sessions, because the DC charge session, let's say if a charger is 100 kilowatt hour, 100 kilowatts, 150 kilowatts, 300 kilowatts, or something like around those line up to 400 kilowatts. That is a really good way to look at every hour. If the prices change, I'm happy to know in advance and I can drive over there. But I think it could be difficult for the AC side of things. If the charging sessions, let's say, is underground, a parking lot for a hotel for the guests, and if dynamic prices are applied over there, the people who are going to stay with their cars probably are going to charge maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, depending what is the size of the batteries. How will that look in that scenario? Probably every hour, if you're going to change the price, could it be done while it's charging, or uh, it's not going to work?
I mean, it depends on the location type. You're speaking about parking and underground. I would say or would recommend a CPO to apply different conditions to a parking lot than to a public AC charging.
Mhm.
Like in a parking lot, you are providing an additional service of parking, which people decide for. So you will be charged for time, right? And then uh, a certain flexibility needs to be applied to the charging part. So having fixed prices in underground garages, I don't see a future for that. I see it being forced upon charge parking operators because they couldn't find a better software. Some things I've learned now that I'm consulting is I will see the world through the glasses of the company that I'm working for,
Mhm.
right? Now I have the luck that, for example, one of my customers asked me, hey, I have this business model. My preferences are these 6 software houses. Which one adjusts better to my business model? And then I suddenly have 6 glasses, right? Or I have the capability to say, I'm going to use no glasses. And then I can help you find the best software for each situation. And if you happen to be a CPO that charges underground and in public, you will have to get a software that has the flexibility to provide 2 pricing strategies for 2 type of locations.
What could be the pricing strategies over there? Underground charging
Does that
a
answer
bit
the question?
expensive?
Underground charging could be dynamic according to power levels or occupancy, right? If occupancy is a big thing because it's a very popular place that requires rotation, because let's say it's an underground parking, but at the same time, it is the parking of a supermarket. And the supermarket wants you to come and consume during 35 minutes. And if you consume, or if you are in my supermarket for an hour and only consume during 30 minutes, then the pricing should change on the charging part. I don't want you to sit around and fill my supermarket when I could have more consumers come to my supermarket. If I am in an IKEA situation, well, that's not going to be a problem because I can provide food. The famous meatballs or whatever could be a solution to that problem. Yeah, it really depends. And it really depends on what added value services you have surrounded your charging locations, right? A charging location, as I said at the beginning, could have a Michelin star restaurant in a very, very crappy place where nobody knows where it is and it's super difficult to get to. You do it on purpose, good for you. If you don't do it on purpose because the location intelligence platform you used for a certain business model doesn't adapt to that, to your CPO in this situation, or to your CPO's customer. A CPO can be focusing on restaurants, and all my restaurants are the same. I don't think so, right? So yeah, it is all a little bit more complex than just 2 or 3 variables.
Okay. No, that was a good way to put it. But I think in that scenario, I think for the supermarket cases, I've seen a very huge failure. There's a huge supermarket nearby me. And I think because of the subsidies they installed, so they have huge parking spaces. So they have outside parking space, they have underground parking space, they have also next to that 3-floor parking space as well. Everything belongs to this huge place. And what they did is that they installed 20 AC charging points and nobody uses them. I've tried using them as well, but I hated the experience because I do not use, I mean, in that supermarket, maybe you will spend 30 minutes at max, or maybe 45 if you're doing one-time grocery for one complete week. But it was, I come back in 40 minutes, my car has been charged, let's say, 7 kilowatt hours. That is 30 kilometers range, maybe, or maybe 40, 50 kilometers range that I've just added. And it's too low. I mean, for those scenarios, I always prefer that the supermarkets now add at least a 50 kilowatt charger to give people at least some sort of flexibility. Even if they are coming back in 30 minutes, you have some reasonable amount of charge. But when I was talking about underground parking, I was thinking more in terms of hotel parkings like Hilton or something. They have also underground parking, and the guests are going to stay with their vehicles for a very longer time. And then I was thinking, okay, maybe hours that they're going to charge. Yeah, that's pretty good. So we have discussed now about the business side of things, how it could be more attractive, how it could generate more traffic as well, hopefully as well, because if I know that there are 3 CPOs, I will always go to the one that is providing me the cheapest, unless I have a company car. That is something that needs to be challenged as well. And
Yeah.
also, I think one part was the education part. Because if you live in Nordics and also you're talking about your experience, you were talking about things. I know when to iron, I know when to do vacuum or dishwashing, but I live in Germany and I Last year, I attended a session from a huge energy player over here, and they were doing a panel talk, and we were talking about smart meters. The education people have in Germany regarding energy contracts, and they say people in Germany do one contract and then they leave it for ages, and that's it. They are never never thinking about how much kilowatt hours the price is fluctuating. They just pay a fixed fee and that's it. So I personally never thought when to iron because I have only a fixed contract, but you are absolutely sure. The more the people are educated about it, the more the people know how energy works, how the prices work. This will make a huge wave when it comes to e-mobility, and especially also for the companies. They can also direct their people, company cars. Hey, think about when you're charging, think about in a sustainable way as well.
You made me think with what you just said about Portugal in two aspects. Portugal, the main hypermarket in Portugal is called Continente, and they offer different speeds of charging connected to
Okay.
your loyalty card. So they know for how long you need to stay, and they will provide you with a certain discounts in minutes for you being a loyal customer. And on the second part about the smart meters and not knowing about what energy contract you are on in Portugal, you can be with a new energy provider every week. So they
Wow.
better have a good offering and improve their offering because next week I'm going. You know, if you
Okay.
have a lot of providers and there is a healthy competition, the benefit is for the end user. So please, Germans, use smart chargers. Okay, please start installing smart chargers. I remember when I first about 13 years ago, I started selling energy contracts. And during that time, 99% of the meters in Spain here were exchanged, and everybody has a smart meter. Is
Wow.
everybody making use of the smart part of the smart meters here in Spain? That is not the case right now, but you could have the possibility to do so.
Wow.
So please,
I
Germans,
mean, I was not aware of Spain. I was
install
always
smart
thinking that
chargers,
smart meters are
smart
things of
meters.
Nordics, that they are 100% on smart meters. And then I read a stat that only 1% of the houses right now in Germany are on smart meters. So that gives a huge perspective. Okay, this is a population of 84 million people, and I'm not sure about the number of houses over here, but it should be around 45 or something, 45 million. And to have just 1% of the houses covered with smart meters, it's a completely different level we are talking in terms of how much education needs to be brought over here and how much effort is required. But yeah, it's interesting. And now I will be just thinking because, sorry, I've taken a lot of your time and we are already over, but maybe I will just try to wind up with two questions and then maybe we can do another session as well. Two things I was thinking that how do you see the future of dynamic pricing, and do you see companies using more algorithms, more AI for it? And yeah, first I will let you answer, and then the last piece will be winding up question where I will ask you for a suggestion for small scale CPOs, what they need to do.
So I, I think people need to move away from subscriptions.
Mhm.
Subscriptions is a very comfortable, but also a bit lazy way of hooking customers towards you. There is many more added value services that you can add. Then we spoke previously about ad hoc payment methods and if they can be dynamic or not. They can definitely be dynamic. So I see that happening, I saw it working. Again, let's not assume we are completely dumb once we exit the house and sit behind the wheel of the car. Ad hoc is expensive. but it could be done in a more smarter way. And dynamic pricing and smart pricing can be applied to ad hoc. What was the history? Everything started at fixed pricing. Do we want now to have the more convenient, the second most convenient way of paying? First one being just plugging in and uh, um, plug and charge happening. But the second most convenient thing, which is tapping your card, should we use that second best user experience with the worst and oldest pricing model?
Yeah, doesn't.
We have learned in the last 10 years, didn't we? I think CPOs need to rethink that part, because it is already possible, and let's just do it, you know?
Okay. No, with the ad hoc payment style. So with the subscription-based method, so dynamic charging could also work, but you're focusing more on the most widely accepted payment situation like ad hoc, which we know from our day-to-day lives with the gas station operator, or maybe paying up in the supermarket. We are always not even thinking about, we just presenting a card and it's accepted and that's good to go. And that's basically, I think what you're trying to say is that combine that with dynamic prices and one can have a winning formula. Is it right? Okay.
And to your last question about what is this, the tips I could give an upcoming CPO, or even not an upcoming CPO, any CPO. I tried in the past, I tried 5 years ago to think about pricing strategies that are location based, right? You'd say everybody in a gym does more or less the same thing. You'd say everybody that goes to a restaurant and charges there will spend more or less the same time there, and their charging experience will be more or less the same. Municipal street charging is one thing, shopping center experience is another thing. And then I built pricing strategies for all these different type of locations. What was my problem? Restaurants are not placed in the right place. Or in a franchise of restaurants, one will be placed better than others, and it will be more suitable for charging or less suitable for charging, which means that it requires a different type of strategy. Can you, or could I, with my small mind and my limited access to 25 plus variables, be able to adjust the strategy for each and every connector? No, that is impossible. But we have AI tools that can create connector-based strategies. Let's imagine you have a charging location that is very long, and you have 5 chargers, but the last one, nobody drives until the last one, and this charger is being underutilized. What if the whole location has one price, but the last connector has a better price because you want people to drive through and get to the end of the line to sell more kilowatt hours? It is completely possible. Would you be able to do that manually with the current software solutions that are available nowadays? No, and maybe that is not your purpose in life. So maybe use these end-to-end payment methods, these marketplaces, to be able to, for you, hey, small CPO that are starting, be smarter than everybody else. Or you, big CPO, which have an occupancy rate of 10%, which is a lot higher than European median values. But are you happy with 10%? Or could you be selling energy 90% of the day as well? Like, the day ends and the plane will depart, and the Valentine's present for your wife will be gone. So why not use these unsold hotel rooms? Why not use these unsold airplane seats for a little better price to increase your occupancy, to increase the production of your charging points? That is the whole thing where you are in business, right? You want to have a return on investment.
But
Can we do it manually?
will
No.
that make a better will that make a worse customer experience? I'm just thinking of the counter side, that why CPO might not be doing is that if they're saying, okay, we are going to make our loyal customers angry, they will feel cheated, that they say, okay, on the first four chargers, the price is, let's say, 60 cents, and on the fifth charger, it's 50 cents. Why it cannot be on all of those chargers? So will it cause friction, or do you think it's just my thoughts and it's not really true?
Um, I have 10 kilometers of here, one of these old triple chargers.
Hmm.
The AC charger is 43, but it cannot be priced as the 30 22 kilowatt slow chargers around them. So first come, first serve, but you can limit how long the people stay there. Your charging session will be 10 cents cheaper or even whatever cheaper, but you're limited to 2 hours. Can you do for the whole location like fixed pricing when there were no DC and no AC chargers and we were not that smart and we didn't have different products in one location? Can you apply the same pricing for a whole location? No. Is that a solution? Yes, this charger will be used. This charger can be priced differently, and you will extract more business, generate more rotation, because obviously this 43 kilowatt charger will give 22 at full power all the time, not like the other 22s, which need to share some power, you know?
Understood.
Pricing strategy is complex and it needs to be planned and thought and
Understood.
understood location by location.
Okay, that was a really nice way to summarize the future, and also advice that think about your customers, think about the charging behavior for a person to analyze on the whole network charging behavior the whole time, every day, every second, considering also the energy costs that are also changing the whole time. It's a complex situation, and using algorithms, using software, using AI now to dynamically change probably the pricing behavior of different connectors, that could be the way forward. And lastly, before we move out, so I would also like the people to reach out to you. What services are you offering at the moment? You mentioned you're doing consultancy offering. So what is it about?
Yeah, so I think many CPOs and aggregators are living off good investors. They're potentially capable of generate money for these investors. But in general, I see that many are living off their belly fat. Charging will not be easier in the coming years. It will have more competitors and consolidation will happen. So if consolidation will happen, which is also already a thing that we see in hardware, why don't you start optimizing today? And this is what I'm offering. I'm offering the analysis of your CPO, and I have about 10 or 11 service providers, which I can link in a diagram around your CPO. And I can try and see if we can train this body, the CPO, to become more efficient. Aren't we all in this business for sustainability's sake? Well, let's analyze what is not working and what is not fully optimized in your setup. I
Mhm.
can give you 10, 11 companies that will provide services to improve your CPO. And that is what I'm doing. You can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm super happy that you connect with me. You will see that I am a believer with a big E and a big V.
Yes.
And I'll try to bring news of charging and EVs from all around the world. And well, there are some services that work only in Europe, but there are some services that work around the world. And this is news. This is news. Not many people know that. I am building a small proof of concept for a CPO in the UK right now with two partners. And yeah, you are one little first step to make that known. So I wanted to say that I'm doing that as well. It's not only about the theory. And Sebastian, you have it so comfortable. You're sitting in your sofa on your balcony. No, I'm hands-on. I'm trying to build it myself. I found a use case that is really, really interesting. And 6 or 7 companies tried to cover that market niche, but I think I can do it better. So I'm starting that right now. It's a little CPO in the UK, and I will soon also put the name of it on my LinkedIn.
So we are going to see a lot in the next few days where your journey is heading, and it's going to be announced soon. So thank you so much for sharing your ambitions, your plans for future over here on my first ever episode. And thank you so much for taking the time out and joining in this session. And I wish you a lot of success. And I really appreciate what you're doing in the e-mobility space. And yeah, more power to you.
I have to say, Said, I learn a lot with what information you share, because you really make a deep investigation into the topics you want to talk about. And I thank you very much for that and for the opportunity to come to your podcast.
Thank you so much, Sebastian, for your nice words. So, wishing you a nice day ahead, and hopefully we'll see it in a couple of weeks. All right. Take care. It was nice talking to you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.